So, good afternoon, ma'am. I'll be explaining to you or telling you about the frameworks and the principles behind our moral disposition. So, first of all, virtue ethics, Aristotle, and the concept of telos means that everything has a purpose or final end. And Aristotle believed that animals like humans have a purpose and and that telos is natural and unchanging. Second, habit and virtue. In the Nicomachean Ethics tells that virtues are habits of the soul which one acts and, for example, for the sake of what is fine and noble. As Aristotle declares it, virtuous actions express correct, right reasons. They are acquired through practice and habituation. Second, virtue a state of character acquired by habituation. Virtue is the disposition to choose the mean in both actions and passions. Virtue is a state of character which causes one to choose the intermediate, like the mean, between the extremes, the vices. So, next, virtue is chosen for its own sake through the passions. So it means that the person should follow the virtuous path to make him feel good, while he should avoid vices that will pain him. So his passions will draw toward the good way other than the bad way. So those are the virtues um, Aristotle in his virtues ethics. Next is the three elements of habit. First is origin, the process of creating the habits, and the resulting action. So first, origin of the habit. For Aristotle, a set of good habits is formed by the youth. They should be taught or led by a virtuous path by his families and his teachers so they will know what is right and avoid what is wrong. Second, the process of creating habits. For Aristotle, habit is an acquired disposition to perform certain types of action. If this disposition involves enchantment cognitive control of actions, it can be considered a habit as learning. Next is action produced by habits. So Aristotle emphasized on the habitual action a theological account of understanding. It is because the purpose of performing any activities on a regular basis as a habitual action must have a moral significance. The manner in which good habits are pursued shows the way of constituting moral character. So Aristotle define of happiness is, according to Aristotle, happiness consists in achieving through the course of a whole lifetime all the goods like wealth, health, knowledge, friends, etc., that led to the perfection of human nature and to the lead to the advancement of human life. So next, virtue ethics. Saint Thomas. Saint Thomas means to natural law is must extensively about nature law. He stated the light of reason is placed by him in his acts. Therefore, human beings alone among God's creature uses reasons to lead their lives. So this is called natural law to him. So natural law in Summa Theologica. In Summa Theologica, Aquinas identifies for four types of law. First is internal law, natural law, human law, and divine law. So I'll explain that laws. So internal law. By eternal law, Aquinas means God's rational purpose and plan for all things. And because the eternal law is part of God's mind, then it has always and will always exist. The eternal law is not simply something that God decided at some point to write. Second, human law. Aquinas described law as a certain rule and measures of acts whereby man is induced to act or is restrained for activity. For acting. Because the rule and measures of human action is reasons. Law has an essential relation to reason, in the first place to divine reason, in the second place to human reason, next. Next, divine law. Divine law comes from revelation, or scripture, hence biblical law, and is necessary for human salvation. According to Aquinas, divine law must not be confused to the nature law. Divine law is mainly and mostly natural law, but it can also be positive law. Last, The Pursuit of Happiness by Thomas Aquinas. For happiness is the perfect good which entirely satisfies one's desire. Otherwise, it would not be the ultimate end if something yet remained to be desired. The next moral principle and framework is by Kant and the right jurist. So Kant, the goodwill. He talks about that in Kant's term, a goodwill is a will whose decisions are wholly determined by moral demands or, as he often refused to this, by this law as a constraint on their natural desires, which is such laws as applied to human beings are imperatives and duties. Second, Kant and moral imperatives. First, there are two things, hypothetical and categorical. So first, hypothetical imperatives means that in the ethics of the 18th century, philosopher Immanuel Kant, a rule of conduct that is understood to apply to an individual only if he or she desires a certain end and chooses and will to act on that desire. So that means of hypothetical imperatives. Second, categorical imperatives. Kant defines categorical imperatives as a command or moral laws a person must follow regardless of their desires or extenuating circumstances. As morals, these imperatives are binding on everyone. So those that are categorical imperatives means types of rights. So first is natural right. Faith is natural rights is strongly expressed by several scholars. They hold that people inherit several rights from nature. Before they came to live in society and state, they used to live in a state of nature. In it, they enjoyed certain natural rights, the right to life, right to liberty, and right to property. Natural rights are parts of human nature and reason. Second, moral right. Moral rights are those which are based on human consciousness. They are backed by moral force of human mind. They are based on human sense of goodness and justice. These are not backed by the force of law, sense of goodness, and public opinion and the sanction behind moral rights. Next is legal rights. There are three types. First is civil rights. Civil rights are those rights which provide opportunity to each person to lead a civilized social life. These fulfill basic needs of human life in society. Right to life, right to liberty and equality are civil rights. Civil rights are protected by the state. Second, political rights. Political rights are those rights by virtue of criticism get shared in the political process. These enable them to take an active part in the political process. These rights include right to vote, right to get elected, right to hold public office, and right to criticize and oppose the government. Political rights are really available to right in a democratic state. Lastly is the economic right. Economic rights are those rights which provide economic security to the people. These enable all citizens to make proper use of their civil and political rights. The basic needs of every person is related to this: food, clothing, shelter, medical treatment, etc. Without the fulfillment of this, no person can really enjoy his civil and political rights. It is therefore essential that every person must get the right to work, right to adequate wages, right to leisure and rest. Rest is very important, and right to social security in case of illness, physical disability, and old. So let's talk about utilitarianism. The history of utilitarianism comes from the origin of utilitarianism are often tracked back to the Epicureanism of the followers of the Greek philosopher Epicurus. It can be argued that David Hume and Edmund Burke were proto-utilitarians, but as a specific school of thought, it is generally credited to the English philosopher Jeremy Bentham. So, distributive justice just concerns the socially just allocation of resources. Other construct with just process, which is concerned with the administration of laws, Restorative justice concentrates on outcomes. The subject has been given considerable attention in philosophy and the social sciences. Lastly, egalitarianism. The egalitarian principle in ethical theory asserts that the best social policy is the one on which gives the greatest welfare, subject to the constraint that all individual members should enjoy equal benefit from society. So, lastly, is what is social justice? For social justice, the ethical principle in social workers challenge social injustice. The code of ethics expands upon this principle. Social workers pursue social change, particularly with and on behalf of vulnerable and expressed individuals and groups of people. So those are the frameworks and principles behind our moral disposition. I hope it's correct and um, it's correct and thank you, mom, and enjoy.